The answer to the question everybody wants to know. LeBron, what's your decision?
In this fall, man, this is very tough. In this fall, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach and join the Miami Heat.
You're speaking, as you alluded to a guy who spent 18 years for one organization, and I would have loved to see LeBron James stay in a small market.
What does this decision say about the shift in power in the NBA, and also what does it say about LeBron James?
I was disappointed. I wanted LeBron to stay in Cleveland, to be honest with you.
They want to talk about super teams this, super team that. I never played on a super team. You started the super team, bro.
When LeBron made this move 14 years ago now, I'm positive he had no clue of the stain it would leave for the NBA's future. Yes, we understand. Miami, they were temporarily the villains. They won, they lost, people loved them, people hated them, whatever. But I'm talking about what happened to the NBA directly after, the domino effect. Now, to be clear and to add context, because I always want this part to really be known, LeBron never shorted the game or even his contract. He always obligated his obligations. One thing Skip Bayless always said about LeBron that to me was always right, this man is very calculated. In 06, he, D-Wade, and Bosh, they all signed shorter extensions with the teams that drafted them to make sure they can be unrestricted free agents in 2010 and ultimately do what they did. So unlike what's happening now, or at least for the remainder of the 2010s, LeBron never cheated his contract. He always played it through. He simply chose a new path, and going forward, he always strategically signed shorter contracts to give him that leverage to leave whenever he really wanted. What happened after that was a bunch of stars flexing their talents and their status to completely abuse the system, which again, LeBron never did. After that major decision in 2010 by LeBron, no team wanted what happened to Cleveland to ultimately happen to them. LeBron left freely, meaning Cleveland got nothing in return. They literally went from winning 61 games the last year he played there to losing 63 games directly after he left. No organization wanted that, and players knew that, and we saw the domino effect directly after. The league had basically flipped upside down with this brand new player empowerment. Today's video is sponsored by Manscaped. Today I'm introducing their brand new Scalp Buffer, which if you wanted to stimulate your hair in any type of way, you need this in your life. First, look at how thick these silicone bristles are, and they're 100% antibacterial. Also, the bristles gently exfoliate your scalp to help reduce dry skin and build up from all the products I'm sure you're using. One quick massage with this helps stimulate blood flow to your hair follicles, and you can hang it up in the shower when you're done. You pair this with Manscaped's 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, and you have the ultimate hair routine. If you want to maximize your hair's health like I do, go to manscaped.com and get 20% off plus free international shipping with my promo code SWISH at checkout. That's 20% off plus free international shipping with my promo code SWISH only at manscaped.com.
You said the Pacers are now in an impossible spot. Tell me why.
Well, because, first of all, trading him to the Lakers is a non-starter because you're going to get dimes on the dollar because the Lakers are not going to pay big bucks or pay up in terms of draft choices to get a guy who they know is going to be there next year.
It's crazy how something LeBron unintentionally created backfired on him in the worst way possible. In 2016, we know Kevin Durant joined Golden State. Now, KD at that time, like LeBron, he didn't cheat the system. He played out his contract with OKC, and once he was a free agent, he decided to leave and join Golden State. Weak ass move, yes. But as mad as we get at Kevin Durant for joining Golden State, we can't say he cheated OKC because he did honor his contract, won an MVP, all that. I don't even think Kevin Durant is as bold to even do such a thing if LeBron didn't figuratively take the bullets for him in 2010. And KD definitely still got it, but LeBron was damn near the pioneer of it in 2010. This basically put a pause on everyone else's chances to win, and Golden State basically became the most unstoppable dynasty that I've ever seen for like 2.5 years. But that's not really the move that I'm referring to when I say it backfired on LeBron. That's obvious. I'm more so talking about Kyrie Irving, his partner. The second half of the 2010s really saw a trend of star players signing max contracts with a team just to wait until the last year or two to ultimately request a trade to where they really want to be. We saw this with Paul George in Indy. They didn't want to lose him for nothing, so they traded him to OKC, where he was basically a rental until he signed that max. We also saw this with Anthony Davis in New Orleans, which it did work out in LeBron's favor, but Kyrie's didn't. Fresh off 3 consecutive championship appearances with Bron, he infamously requested a trade, having 2 years left on that deal. The player, LeBron, most likely went back to Cleveland for. Kevin Love wasn't even there yet. He basically burned out and wanted to create his own legacy elsewhere and left LeBron by himself to fend against the best team ever. Now, something I noticed, especially towards the back half of the 2010s, was the abuse factor of it. Like, at first, it was player empowerment, but it quickly shifted into player entitlement. Like I said, in 2010, LeBron left for nothing, and he didn't really do anything wrong per se, but he left for nothing and really scarred the rest of the NBA. Now teams were so fearful of their franchise player leaving for nothing like Bron and how badly it can set their franchise back for years that once a player said he wanted to be traded, he typically got what he wanted. The perfect example of how this can be done right when you all of a sudden have a disgruntled star that wants to be traded after getting the bag was Denver and Carmelo Anthony. It's crazy because this really happened only a few months after the Big Three formed their stuff in Miami. Carmelo was unhappy in Denver, probably seeing his draft class do what they did with Miami, and he ultimately wanted to go to New York, and they gave him what he wanted. But in the process, they depleted New York's roster, made it very hard for New York to even contend with Carmelo, and in the long run, they won big time. In order to even get Melo, New York sent very good productive players to Denver to basically help them contend right now and shore up their future. Timothy Mozgov, Danilo Gallinari, Wilson Chandler, Raymond Felton. The year Melo left, they made the playoffs. The year after, they made the playoffs. The year after that, they won the most games they had in almost 40 years. 2 years later, they used one of their pick swaps from that Melo trade to get Jamal Murray. That's what organizations wanted to be the standard of how it's to be done when losing a franchise type player like Melo. When these star players all of a sudden got unhappy and requested a trade with minimal years left on their contract, it can be tough because of the leverage they really did have. These stars, knowing they will be on the market soon, all they really had to do was say the place they wanted to be, and their current team kinda had to negotiate with them. Why? Well, because nobody wants to trade and give up valuable assets for essentially a rental. That's even worse than what happened to Cleveland. At least they didn't lose anything. We saw this happen with teams like Boston, who obviously recovered from it. New Orleans, when they traded for Boogie, but he eventually left once injuries derailed him from the contract that he did want. The Raptors, who basically used Kawhi as a rental for their first championship. Still a fair exchange if you ask me. That 2017, 18, 19, 20, even 21 era, that's really when the NBA turned into a reality show. And to me, stuff became less about hoops and actually what happened on the court, and more so about who was disgruntled and who wanted out and what free agency was going to look like. And really player empowerment, it just hit a whole new level.
The Brooklyn Nets are trading James Harden to Philadelphia for the 76ers. Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks. That's according to our Woj.
One thing I can say I respect about James Harden is as dirty and as unprofessional as he was in his exit with Houston, he didn't do him as dirty as he could have. Remember in 2020 when he was being a diva and looking all out of shape and basically forcing Houston's hand to let him go? Yes, that was a very bad look, and yes, that was very unprofessional, etc. But Houston did offer him an extension to make him the first $50 million annual player ever, and he declined. He wanted to leave that bad. Now, people clown him for this move because it did kind of hurt him long term with other teams, but he didn't do what other stars did after him. We saw player entitlement hit a brand new low with players like Ben Simmons. I can't lie, I feel bad for players like Lonzo who wanted to be great, but their bodies just broke down. But I can never feel sorry for a player like Ben because he may have been the most entitled, selfish player that I've ever seen. This year marks the last year of possibly the worst contract given out ever. And I'm not really for players being blackballed from the NBA, but if he were to, it would be 100% justified. The 76ers gave him a contract in 2019 that didn't even start until his last year actually playing on Philly in 2021. His last year really playing basketball in 2021 was the first year that contract really started. After that last year and that infamous play, he essentially quit basketball with 4 years, $146 million left on that contract. Ben, as we know, demanded a trade after that Hawks series, and he wouldn't even be a touch professional unless he got what he wanted. This, to me, broke the system completely.
The news is here. According to our Adrian Wojnarowski, Kevin Durant's manager, Rich Kleiman, has told him that Kevin Durant has requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. And so
I love KD, and I hate that I even have to talk about him in this light, especially now, PG County legend. But it was terrible what he even did in 2022. In the summer of 2021, KD signed a contract extension with Brooklyn that didn't even start until the 2023 season. After the 2022 season, and I understand the Kyrie drama, Ben Simmons now being on your team, James Harden being traded, it was a lot of stuff going on. But 1 year after signing that contract that didn't even kick in yet, he requested a trade. He was nowhere near as bad as Ben. I understand that. But it was just such a bad look, especially from players like KD, to sign a contract with a team and immediately demand a trade before the contract even kicked in. The ink didn't even dry yet. At this time, we knew the system was completely broken, way far beyond what LeBron did in 2010. And we knew the new CBA agreement was likely going to fix it.
I don't know. Steve is a good dude. Like, you know, I love Steve as an owner, one of the best owners that I played for. But, you know, it's a business. Like, you can't, I won't take nobody's word if they can't put it in writing.
Right.
Yeah.
I found this great article by the Washington Post. I'll link it down below. It beautifully breaks down how the new CBA went to extreme measures, probably too extreme measures, to really fix what happened in the 2010s. Again, not blaming LeBron, because LeBron really did it the right way, but it all ties back to his decision and the domino effect with players really abusing the system. That's what the NBA hammered down on fixing. Now, to scare teams from making all these rash decisions and piling on all these stars without any type of consequences, the CBA now has these very harsh first and second apron rules that really force feeds parity amongst us, and that's just the new NBA. A lot of the trades that we've seen recently over the past decade literally would not happen now. Teams above the first apron, a specific number, they can't be flexible enough to make sign and trade deals. They don't have the leeway to take cash back for a single salary. Like, stuff like that just can't happen now. The second apron rules are even worse, where the first apron rules are still applied and you're basically limited to a one player for another player trade where the salaries have to match identically. That's not even the norm in today's league. We still haven't even seen the true result of the new CBA just yet because it's early, but we have had glimpses of what the future holds. Paul George was basically let go by the Clippers because, well, is it even worth being over the second apron and losing all of your flexibility for a team that's proven they cannot win? It really hurts me because even organic teams like Denver, they got hit with it even though they drafted all of their best players. Most of their money is going towards players they drafted, and that's how it should be. But they can't even afford their key role players like KCP and Bruce Brown. Why? Because they don't want to fall under that second apron. Those penalties are just way too harsh. Free agency this year, it was dry. Last year, Dame didn't even get what he ultimately wanted. The league now feels like it's being shifted away from the reality show aspect of it, and the drama did bring the NBA a lot of money. The offseason was damn near as compelling as the real season. And now it feels like it's more geared towards a straight hoops, less drama, parity-filled, well-balanced NBA. And is it good for the league? We'll see.
But you know, Steph is a blessing and a curse. Because it used to be guys was always trying to dunk. Now he got 7 years old, running behind the three-point line, jacking up threes.
Absolutely. I'm going to youth games. I had kids, my kids was younger. I'm going to their games, and kids are jacking up shots like they Steph Curry those are horrible shots.
Right.
The 2010s also introduced a style of basketball that we've seen before, but as we know, got really popularized by Golden State and most definitely Stephen Curry. He took it to a whole new world. Now, like I said, we did have teams in the 2000s that moved the ball and relied heavily on outside scoring. Mike D'Antoni's Phoenix Suns, the Orlando Magic, they were there. But this is really the era where we've seen it really take over and essentially overshadow individual dominance from players like LeBron, James Harden, and damn near everybody else that couldn't beat that Golden State team. Now, I know we all think about Golden State when we talk about team ball, cutting three-pointers, and selfless basketball. And with Stephen Curry and Klay, they are a significant piece of the evolution of this style. But I want to take you to the 2014 NBA Finals for a quick second. This was quite literally the most beautiful basketball ever played. And ironically enough, this was one season before Golden State took off with their dynasty. San Antonio met Miami, who was also a very older team, but they had LeBron James, and we know he's a freak. Outside of Kawhi, San Antonio wasn't the youngest team, or they didn't even have the best athletes. It was really a younger Kawhi surrounded by a bunch of older vets that mastered the art of team basketball, and they ran it to perfection. In the first two games of that finals, San Antonio and Miami split, which favored Miami because San Antonio originally had home court. Miami stole it. In game 3, San Antonio made a slight move, a slight adjustment that, in my opinion, changed basketball forever, and I actually have the numbers to back it up. Pop decided to go smaller and put Tim Duncan at the 5, taking Thiago Splitter out the starting lineup for Boris Diaw. This move gave San Antonio, who weren't quite as athletic as Miami, it gave them the spacing to force Miami to cover the entire floor. Miami was the oldest team in the league at that time. D-Wade's knees were cooked. LeBron was gassed. The lineup Pop experimented with at that time is now the preferred lineup of today's NBA, where you have 4 floor spaces on the court at one time and 1 true big in the paint. Game 3 and so on. San Antonio did that, and they absolutely obliterated Miami and Bron and them with the cleanest form of ball movement and spacing that to this day I've ever seen. The Spurs in that series, especially after their lineup adjustment to add Boris Diaw to the starting lineup, they really banked on threes. 33% of their shots were three-pointers. At that time, that wasn't normal. The Spurs attempted the most three-pointers a night in an NBA Finals history with 23. Now, that sounds like nothing. At the time, it was the most ever. I can never really blame Bron for that finals because the Spurs, they literally played the most perfect basketball we've ever seen. Not only did they just chuck the most three-pointers up and miss, they made the most three-pointers ever with 47%. That's still to this day a record. They also shot the highest field goal percentage the finals still to this day has ever seen, and the highest true shooting percentage. 10 years later, with the evolution of three-pointers and how that elevates a team's offensive rating, they still have the 3rd highest offensive rating in a single finals ever, only behind the greatest team ever assembled in my opinion. This, to me at least, was officially the start of the barrage of three-pointers and us really realizing how truly effective it was. If you really want to understand how effective that one Boris Diaw move was and how it shifted that series, and most importantly to me, the entire NBA. I told you, San Antonio had the 3rd most efficient offense in the single finals, only behind Golden State's back-to-back years. Well, if you scale it down to the 3 games Boris Diaw actually started, games 3 through 5, they were first. Miami to that point, they hadn't lost 3 consecutive games with Bron actually in the lineup in 3 years. San Antonio beat them 3 straight times by 19 points a game. It was a massacre, bruh. LeBron chasing the shooters around all day. Tony Parker, Manu, all these shooters, and he had to deal with Kawhi on the other end. You see why he was exhausted. If you don't think that one finals, or specifically that one Boris Diaw tweak, had a major effect on the league's future, well, listen to this. If you actually look at the most three-pointers attempted by a single team in a single season per game, up to that point, there was only one team from the 2014 season. Only one team. The league up to that point, the year San Antonio won the championship in 2014, it hadn't shifted yet to a three-point frenzy league where multiple teams were living and dying by the 3. It just wasn't a thing yet. The year after San Antonio won that championship, which was actually the first year Golden State won theirs, 5 of the top 10 teams as far as the most three-pointers shot a night in the history of the league were from that very same season. 5. It literally shifted, to me, the perception of that shot and how the game was ultimately played. In 2015, the year after, we saw teams like the Atlanta Hawks win 60 games, one of the fakest first seeds I've ever seen, but they were deadly from beyond the arc. Who was their head coach? Mike Budenholzer. Where did he come from? San Antonio. The finals in 2015, and it sucks that it always seems to happen to Bron, but that finals really turned upside down when Golden State was down 2-1 and Steve Kerr basically pulled a pop. He took out Andrew Bogut, created his version of the death lineup, putting in Andre Iguodala, which damn near won Andre that finals MVP, and Steph's numbers went through the roof, and they never lost a game after that. After we basically had back-to-back years of that style proving it does work when executed properly, the league just went insane. In 2017, and this damn near ended Dwight's prime, Mike D'Antoni and Houston, they said F a big, got rid of Dwight, and they chucked up 43 pointers a night for the first time ever. That year, they shot 7 more threes than the second best. The league was officially baptized by the three-point line, and it's never really looked back. If you look at just last year's finals, it featured the first team as far as three-point attempts a night and the second team. Golden State obviously deserves their credit because they took it to a whole new dimension with Steve Kerr, Klay Thompson, Draymond, because he was like Boris Diaw on steroids and he played both sides of the ball, and obviously Stephen Curry. But the 2014 San Antonio Spurs, they're one of the most significant teams, in my opinion, in NBA history. If you guys like this video, don't just leave the video. Drop a like, and if you made it this far, comment your favorite team of the 2010s. Mine personally is the 2013 Heat. Like, that year was just crazy, and I am going to make a video about that. Follow my social media sites, turn on post notifications, do all that great stuff, guys, and until next time, as always, stay tuned.